Hello, Alvin ISD mathematicians. Today we're going to be talking about measures of central tendency, which is our standard of 612C. So how will we be learning that today? Today we're going to summarize numerical data, or data with numbers, using the mean, median, mode, range, and interquartile range. By the end of today's lesson, you should be able to answer the following question. So this is going to be our target of our learning today. The first measure of central tendency that we'll look at is called a mean. Our mean is the average of a data set. This is the sum of all of our numerical values divided by the total number of values in the data set. What this means is that I'm going to find the sum of all of the values in my data set right here, and then I'm going to divide it by the number of values. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 numbers in my data set. So I'm going to add up all of the values. I see that 8 and 12 makes 20, 4 and 6 makes 10, 1 and 19 makes 20, and then 10 and 5 makes 15. And then I have my 14 in the front. So 20, 10, and 20 makes 50, plus our 15, which is 65, plus our 14, which gives us 79. So my sum was 79, so I took all of the values in the set and added them together. And now I'm going to divide that by 9 to get my average. So 79 divided by 9. 9 does not go into 7. And I can fit 8 groups of 9 into 79. So I take away my 72. And I'm left with 7. So I'm going to add my decimal point. And then a 0. And bring it down. 9 fits into 70. 7 times. So I take away 63. And I'm left with another 7. When I add my 0, I bring it down, and I see that I have another 70. What this means is that I'm going to keep getting 7s as my remainder. So my mean, or my average, will be 8.7 repeating. The bar on top means that that value is repeating. The second measure of central tendency is our median. And a median is the middle number of a data set when the numbers are arranged in order, and in order from least to greatest. So when I look at my table, I see that my least value is 100, so that will be where I start. I have 2 values of 160, 210, 250, 270, and then 300. So we want our middle number. So I'm going to start crossing off a value that's the farthest to the least, and then a value that's farthest to the greatest. And I'll keep crossing this off until I arrive at a middle number. So 210 is in the middle. So my median is 210. If I have a set of data, for example, that I cannot cross off to only one number in the middle, if I'm left with 2, then my median will be the number that's in between those 2 numbers. So the number that's in between 4 and 6 here is 5. So this data set would have a median of 5. Mode is the number in a data set that occurs the most, or it has the highest frequency. So we're going to write that. That's important. Remember, frequency is how often something occurs. So when I take a look at my data set, I see that they were very kind. So we're going to smile about that. Very kind, and they already put our numbers in order from least to greatest. Now this helps us because when I order my numbers from least to greatest, I'm able to identify the frequency easier. So I see that 58 is repeated 3 times. 60 is repeated twice. 62 is repeated twice. And then 63 is also repeated 3 times. So I have 58 that's repeated 3 times, and then 63 that's repeated 3 times. Since they both have the same frequency that is the highest, my mode will actually be 58 and 63. If I have a data set, for example, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I don't have a number that has a frequency that's the highest, if they all have the same value of frequency, then I don't have a mode. Our next value, or our next measure of central tendency, is called range. Our range is the difference in the minimum and the maximum value of a data set. So again, a really good strategy to help us is to order these numbers in least to greatest. You don't have to order the numbers in least to greatest, but sometimes when we have sets of numbers that include a lot of values, it's easier to cross them off one by one as you order to make sure that you don't forget any. So 30 is my minimum value. This is the smallest value in my data set. And 120 is my maximum. So the difference, or the distance between those two numbers, is 90, because I can do 120 minus 30 to get 90. So my range here is equal to 90. Quartile 1 and quartile 3. So quartile 1 tells us where 25% of the data falls below or ends. This is our median of the first half of the data. Quartile 3 shows us where 75% of the data ends or falls below, and it's the median of the second half of the data. So when I see things like first half and second half of the data, this tells me that I need to break my data into 2 halves. So I need to find my middle point, which is my median. So I'm going to order my numbers from least to greatest. So the first number I need to find is my median. So I'll find my middle number by marking numbers off on the far end of the left and the far end of the right. So I get that 8 is my median. This is my middle number of the entire set, which leaves me with my lower half, or my first half of data, and then my upper half, or my second half of data. So for the first quartile, I want my median of that first half. So if I cross numbers off again, I get to between 4 and 5. So I know between 4 and 5 is 4.5. So that would be my value for first quartile. Now I'll use the same strategy for my upper half. I'll cross off 10 and 19, and then I get to 12 and 14. There is not a number in between 12 and 14 in the data set, so I need to think numerically. And I know that between 12 and 14, that middle value is 13. So the value for my third quartile would be 13. Lastly, we get to our interquartile range. Now this will be similar to our range, which is the difference between our maximum and our minimum. But now we want to think in the sense of our inner quartiles. So our interquartile range is the difference between the third quartile and the first quartile of a data set. So just like our previous example, we'll order our numbers. And in order to find our interquartile range, we need to find that quartile 1 and quartile 3. These are actually the same numbers from the previous example, so I'm going to go through what we did. We found very quickly that 8 was our median, which broke up our first half and our last half of data. The median of our first half, which is our quartile 1, was in between 4 and 5, so a value of 4.5. And our third quartile, which is the median of the upper half, was in between 12 and 14, which gave us a value of 13. So for our interquartile range now, our interquartile range is the difference between our third quartile and our first quartile. So my third quartile was 13, and my first quartile was 4.5. So when I subtract those, I get a value of 8.5. So my interquartile range is equal to 8.5. So now we're going to practice this. We want to identify the minimum, the maximum, the median, the mode, the range, and the interquartile range. So I'm going to list off my values over here. I need the minimum, the maximum, my median, the mode, the range, and the interquartile range. My minimum is really easy to see right here. I have a minimum of 18. My maximum value that I have on my graph is going to be 34. That's the highest value where I have a data point. My mode, which has the highest frequency, is right here, and that's in between 30 and 32, so that gives us a value of 31 for the mode. I can calculate my range very quickly because it will be 34 minus 18, which is 16. To find my median and my interquartile range, I'm going to go ahead and list out my values. So I have two values for 18, 19, 20, 26, 3 values for 31, because that is my mode, and a value for 34. So starting off by finding my median. My median is 26. So now I can find values of my first quartile and my third quartile. The value of my first quartile is 18.5. And the value of my third quartile, well, there is no number between 31 and 31, so my third quartile is just a value of 31. So when I subtract 31 by 18.5 to find my interquartile range, I can borrow from the 3 to get a value of 2. Which gives me 11 here. And I'm going to borrow from that now to my 10th place. So I get an interquartile range of 12.5. All right, guys, we've arrived at the end of our lesson, and we're now at our learning target. So at this moment, please pause your video and attempt the problem on your own. When you're ready to check your solution, please resume the video. All right, guys. Thank you for trying that on your own. Our learning target is asking us to find the range of these areas. Remember, range is the difference between the maximum and the minimum value. Well, our maximum value that I see right here is 961, and our minimum value is 517. Notice 517 is also our mode. So then to find the range, I will just do my subtraction. So 961 minus 517. I'll borrow from my my tens place and give to my ones place. So now I have 11 ones. I'm taking away 7 ones, which leaves me 4. I have 5 tens, and I'm taking away 1 10, so I have 4 tens now. And I have 9 hundreds, and I'm taking away 5 hundreds, which leaves me 4 hundreds. So altogether, I am left with a range of 444. Thank you for learning with us today.